To make up for her months-long media avoidance, Kamala is working overtime on her media blitz tour this week. And if you think it's going well for her, you either A, haven't been watching or listening, or B, you're flat out lying. The show starts now. So Kamala's media tour is going well for the Trump campaign. It's not hard to figure out why her campaign has been playing hide and seek for the last 70 days. But in true media mob style, the networks are still covering for her, well, as much as they can. Even editing can't make her look good, but it can make her look less bad. So when asked on 60 Minutes about Israel and the ongoing dumpster fire in the Middle East, here was Kamala's actual answer.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But after that word salad ramble was mocked on social media, the CBS YouTube version of her answer was noticeably cut down.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
And that's how the shameless and supposedly tough and unbiased mainstream media acts. But then you have alternative media operations like the Howard Stern Show. Howard doesn't even try to hide it. In fact, he's going out of his way to be as pathetic and lapdoggy as possible. A barf bag, please.
When you said you don't nap, I get it, because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment in the sense that, like when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country. Even when I watch them on Saturday Night Live with the where they have Maya Rudolph playing you, I hate it. I don't want you being made fun of. There's too much at stake. I believe the entire future of this country right now, I mean, as America, land of the free, home of the brave, I think it's literally on the line.
I agree with you.
And when I see them, how did you react to the Saturday Night Live bit?
Well, I just saw it, actually, and it was funny. I am a huge fan of Maya Rudolph's. I think she put a lot of time into doing the piece and the character.
None of this is going to help Kamala. Mail-in ballots and or an irrational hatred for Trump's personality are only things that could win her this election. Joining me now with her take on Kamala's big week and more is RNC spokeswoman Elizabeth Pipko. Elizabeth, it's great to have you. And I have to ask you right off the top, how do you think this week is going for Kamala Harris?
Well, first of all, nice to meet you. Thank you for having me. Look, I think what's most interesting is not what you and I think. It's what people on the left seem to think. And more, the more she's out there, the more I hear that people are not happy with her, right? It's almost like she was at her highest peak in this campaign when she was still hidden. There's a reason for that. There's a reason her campaign kept her hidden to begin with. There's a reason we were counting, I believe, up to 39 days before she ever spoke out at all after becoming the nominee. So I think they know as well as we do why she's being hidden, why that's the best strategy for them, and why appearing on The View a few weeks before Election Day to kind of even stumble her way through that with nothing but friends on the panel is not going to help her on November 5th.
Well, I have a clip from The View that I want to play for you in just a moment. But before that, I mean, obviously, Kamala and her team, they can't plan natural disasters and catastrophe, right? So that's not their fault. But I will say, whoever on her PR or media team that decided that during the midst of, an incoming major hurricane and in the aftermath of a major hurricane that is still impacting lives, people still struggling, and now we're about to be hit by another one. The fact that her media and her PR team still thought it was a good idea to have her go on The Late Show and drink a Miller Lite, or go on a sex podcast, or even go on Howard Stern, go on The View. I just can't imagine from a strategy standpoint how that was a sound decision. And I'm wondering, not even as a Republican, as an RNC spokeswoman, but just from a purely strategic standpoint, as somebody who does this and helps candidates in this, do you understand understand the rationale behind that and why they would put her out there on a week and weeks that people are being impacted like they are with major hurricanes?
I don't understand it at all. It's weird. Over the last couple of months, I have found myself kind of having, unfortunately, to remind myself that Joe Biden is the current president, right? And so I'm having to remind myself again that Kamala Harris is the current vice president. Not only is she acting very strangely for someone running for the office of the presidency, but she's acting very strangely for someone who is currently responsible for the well-being of the American people. For some reason, after Joe Biden checked out and she had to kind of step into that role, not just on the ticket, but in the White House, she's done the opposite. Let's not forget, this man checked out and said that he is not capable of running for the presidency, meaning he's not capable of being the president right now. Our allies see that, our adversaries see it, the American people see it every single day. And instead of kind of taking that in stride and kind of going into November 5th as the, I guess, woman in chief that she has to be because he's not able to be the president right now, she's gone the other way and fled as well. So it's almost like we have nobody in charge right now, nobody to scare our adversaries, no one to kind of fight to bring American hostages home, for example, no one to visit these sites and make sure the American people are okay. I'm hearing horror stories from North Carolina. I actually made my own trip down with some of the Women for Trump surrogates to Georgia after the hurricane. We're planning more and more of those trips as we speak. We're kind of watching very closely what's happening in Florida. I'm here in Florida right now, worried about what's going to happen. And I can't imagine how the American people feel, not because it's a candidate running for president who totally doesn't care about them, but because it's the current vice president who chose to be on Call Her Daddy or with Howard Stern or anybody else except the American people who are literally drowning as we speak. And it's horrible. It sets a dangerous precedent. And regardless of, I think, where you stand in this election, regardless of the fact that I'm the spokeswoman for the Republican Party, I think everyone would agree this is the last thing anyone in the country wants to see when we are literally drowning and terrified of what's coming next over these next 24, 48 hours.
Hell, even Joe had the wherewithal to cancel international trips this week because he understood that that probably wouldn't look good. But what I think is interesting about this is, listen, she's the vice president. I don't expect her to necessarily be on the ground managing emergency situations. I think that's unrealistic. However, just the projection of leadership and strength is important. But what she thinks that is opportunistic moments for her to appear like she's doing something, like when she supposedly called Ron DeSantis. He's sitting here 2 weeks after Helene, bracing for Milton, and he's supposed to take a call from the vice president because she wants to look good in between her sex podcasts. Oh, no. But one person that we know is not going to put up with that BS is Governor Ron DeSantis. He stands on and takes care of business. Here is him on Fox and Friends responding to her phony BS. Let's take a look at this.
We've been on an emergency footing for 2 weeks straight, round the clock, 24/7. She has never called on any of the storms we've had since she's been vice president until apparently now. Why all of a sudden is she trying to parachute in and inject herself when she's never shown any interest in the past? We know it's because of politics. We know it's because of her campaign. I have zero time to entertain these political games.
I think he put that perfectly. But, Joe Biden even had to give credit to a Governor Ron DeSantis, which also leads me to believe that the current president really doesn't like Kamala and he doesn't want to help her with her election. I personally believe that. But what do you think about kind of the different messages coming out of the same White House? You got Joe Biden that's saying, hey, DeSantis is doing a great job. And then you've got Kamala who's trying to, call her daddy up to Governor Ron DeSantis, and it's not working out.
It's definitely not working out. I think Ron DeSantis also mentioned actually in that interview that he's had a great relationship with Joe Biden when he had worked with him through different storms in the past as well. When storms had erupted, he said whether it was under Donald Trump or Joe Biden, he had a great working relationship with both of them. He doesn't want, I don't think, to play political games. And if you're at all following the storm that's about to hit us tonight, I think people realize it's going to be incredibly strong. It might be one of the worst storms that the west coast of Florida has seen in a very, very long time. He has lives at stake, literally lives at stake. He can't think about this campaign. And I think I like to think about it in my own way. I know you said it's unrealistic to assume that Kamala Harris could be on the ground, but The fact is, this is her job. I remember when I was deciding if I would take this role right now and wondering if it was a good idea for me. And I made the choice after I was driving somewhere and I saw a homeless veteran on the street. And I thought to myself, if I have 1 ounce of a chance of any kind of platform or influence to make a change and make sure this is not happening in my country, I have to take it. It's that simple. She's the current vice president of the United States of America. It should be uncomfortable for her to even appear on these podcasts when people are suffering, when we have homeless veterans, when we have kids who can't eat, when we have people wondering if they're going to make it through the storm, when you have FEMA unable to fund those that need hotel rooms to kind of survive in this. And I literally mean survive. People know that if they stay put, if they stay in their homes, they're not going to make it. And I wish to God we had a vice president and a president who made us feel like we were taken care of in any kind of way.
Yeah, it's just so tone deaf. It's one thing to do interviews. I understand that she's running for the highest office in the land. I understand she's got to do interviews, and I understand that she can't just be 100% focused on a hurricane. You know, I give some grace there. But it's one thing to do an interview. It's another thing to do these fluffy BS, sit and cackle, or, you know, crack a beer open and laugh. I think that is just so inappropriate on every level. And then, you know, when I put that out on X last night, you know, you have all the Kamala defenders that go, well, Donald Trump is doing this. Donald Trump's going to have a rally at Coachella. And I'm thinking to myself, and I said to them, Donald Trump's not currently in political office. This is not under his purview, though he is still doing everything he can in conjunction with Elon Musk to get people Starlink and get them communications. That's not his duty or responsibility, but he's doing it because he's a patriot and he's a friend of the people. But I do want to ask you, because you are in Florida, you know, just to take a brief side note from the politics, what is it like in Florida right now? Are people panicking? Do people feel like they have the things that they need, at least for the next few days, to get through the height of this thing?
Yeah, so I'm luckily on the East Coast of Florida. I don't think I'm going to get hit very hard at all, but I have a lot of family, a lot of friends who are going to be directly impacted by the storm, probably in a couple of hours. I have an aunt and a grandmother in Sarasota. They have obviously fled. I am looking at the updates every single hour because the storm seems to be moving, but people are very, very afraid what happened after Helene the other day. I mean, people are still impacted. People are still not in their homes. They're still looking for groceries and toilet paper and different items that they don't have in different communities, and knowing what's happening in the next, I guess, a day or two. Again, we don't even know how soon it's going to hit. It scares a lot of people, and you hear people worrying about where they're going to sleep. There are people that weren't even able to find a place to sleep. There are people I know renting homes with up to 15, 20 people in them, just trying to get as far away from the storm as they can. It's very scary. The reports that I've heard show it's going to be one of the strongest storms we've probably seen in Florida in quite some time. And I think it's moments like this when you realize what actually matters. I know we have an election in a couple of weeks. I know how much that matters, but I know that tomorrow people may not wake up. I am terrified of the damage that we're going to see, terrified for how the country will recover, terrified for those in Florida, in Georgia, North Carolina that are still suffering, obviously, from the storm that we saw just last week, wondering how they're going to be okay, and hoping more than anything that we can just come together. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, everyone in between. I mean, this is lives at stake. It really is. And I hope to God we see as little damage as we possibly can over the next 48 hours.
There are people that were already struggling, and now they're figuring out how they're going to rebuild. And a lot of those folks just can't afford day-to-day expenses, let alone something catastrophic happening in their lives and into their homes. I can't imagine how difficult that must be. And I know a lot of people are really fearful right now. We just pray for everybody's safety. And we're happy that Governor Ron DeSantis is a true leader, and I have confidence that he will get the people of Florida through this to the best of his ability. I do want to toss now back to that clip of Kamala on The View, just to go right back around to politics here. The Donald Trump campaign actually made this into a very short, concise, but very impactful ad. Let's take a look at it.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
That's pretty damaging. People are not happy with where they are right now, and she's essentially saying she wouldn't have done anything differently. So whereas Joe's kind of going out of his way to throw Kamala under the bus, she still seems to be clinging on to him in some way, shape, or form. What do you think the strategy behind that is?
I think the strategy, honestly, is wake up, see where the polls are, and decide that day. I don't believe anything that comes out of her mouth, unfortunately, and it seems very strange to me, just the angle of let me fix all your problems when I'm the one that's created them all for you over the last 4 years. I think the entire thing doesn't make a lot of sense, and I think you can clearly see, as you pointed out, the disconnect between Joe Biden and his team and Kamala Harris and hers. I wasn't there. I don't know what happened when Joe was pushed out. I'm sure it was incredibly uncomfortable at best, and I can only imagine that for him, having to sit back and look at his legacy that's now in her hands with her run and how she chooses to address the last 4 years is very awkward. It's very strange. And I think for all of us, we're just looking for some kind of platform positions, right? Some kind of policies that we know for a fact she actually stands on. And they seem to change by the day, as does her connection to the last 4 years. But she did lay it out right there. She would not have done anything differently. And the American people on countless issues from the economy to national security believe that they were doing better under Donald Trump than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So there's your answer. It's not going to get better if she's in the White House in January of 2025. It's more than likely just going to get worse.
Yeah, it's either going to stay status quo or it's going to get noticeably worse. And I see these ads all the time that she's running, and I see them and I hear them. And a lot of them are really based around the fact that Donald Trump wants to take care of billionaires and he wants to take care of his rich friends and all of this. But I think it's so interesting because, yes, Donald Trump is a wealthy man and he wants wealthy people to do well because they do create jobs and they do pay the bulk of taxes in this country. But also, if you look at Donald Trump's record, that tax cut was a tax cut for 80% of Americans and people were doing well. So why he would all of a sudden just help billionaires when during his tenure he was helping everybody, I don't understand how they can possibly expect people to believe that. But, on that same note, another thing that I like that I'm seeing the resurrection of, going back to his victory in 2016, is I like seeing Melania Trump back out there. She was on the 5 yesterday. She's obviously been doing the media rounds because of her memoir being released this week. But I think she's an incredibly powerful advocate. We know that the left is going to tear her down and they're going to say horrible things about her. But from your perspective, as somebody that is a part of Women for Trump, how important do you think Melania could be, especially in this final push to maybe even helping with the female vote?
It's incredibly important. I appreciate that you brought up 2016. I was on the 2016 campaign. I was 21 years old. It was one of my first real jobs. And I remember watching the American people get so excited. It wasn't just about Donald Trump. I remember being at these events. They would get almost as excited when Melania walked into a room, when Ivanka walked into a room. People love Donald Trump, but they also really, really love his family. I think if you compare the way that they treat the Trump family to a lot of other families in politics, you could say it is very different. The celebrity status that his kids have reached alone proves that they are loved actually as a family, not just as an individual for Donald Trump. It's very interesting to see and to be a part of. I've known them now for 8 years and they've been nothing but wonderful to me, and I completely get it. But I think Melania's story, I think the way she carries herself, I think their relationship in general is something that a lot of people are clearly very, very interested in. And look, who doesn't want Melania Trump with her beautiful face on the campaign trail? It makes perfect sense. And I think you mentioned she was on the 5 yesterday. She's a lot of fun, just like Donald Trump. She is. She's kind. She's funny. She's down to earth. People love that side of her and that side of all the Trumps because they are very successful. They're billionaires from New York, and people don't realize unless they spend some time with them just how down to earth and lovely they are to be around. So I'm excited that she's out there as much as she is. I hope she remains out there for all of us through November 5th because it's helpful to us. And I think it's helpful to the American people who are just curious about those that are hopefully going to be back in the White House in just a couple of months.
She's so classy and she's so elegant. Every time that I see her, you just can't help but miss it and hope it returns to the White House. We need to bring decency back. We know Joe Biden wanted to do that, and then he brought trans flashers to the White House lawn. But the last thing I want to ask you about Melania, because I think this is important as well, is she's been very outspoken with this memoir about being pro-choice and about believing in abortion rights. Now, there are some on the right that are really criticizing her for that, and they think that this is going to be a problem for Donald Trump. I see it completely differently. I think when you are in the issues people care about, abortion is on that list, of course, behind immigration and the economy. But people care about it. The Republicans are not polling well on it. We know the national sentiment tends to be closer to the pro-choice side. And so I think when you've got Melania saying, hey, listen, I'm pro-choice. My husband knew I was pro-choice from the day he met me. I'm happy to say I'm pro-choice. He respects me. I respect him. I think that's positive. When you need to win people over, it's okay to have disagreements even within your own family. I think it's a strength. And I'm wondering how you see it.
Yeah, look, so just personally, I completely agree with you. I think it's a huge strength. And I would like to point out, I'm pretty sure if this was happening on the left, it would be celebrated because it shows diversity of thought in a relationship. I think people would love that. I think in general, the fact that she was able to speak out and say that proves that all of the rhetoric around Donald Trump and Republicans in general being the mean, scary monsters that they are is just clearly proven to be not true. We have a lot of diversity of thought on the right. I wish people actually looked into that and appreciated that more. I've had many disagreements with people on the right who I've remained friendly with. Obviously, I can't say the same for those on the left. It actually feels very strange to me because I talk to people more often than not about what I disagree with them on. I have no interest in talking to people who only agree with me on every single issue, but I love being in a party, in a movement where I know that I can tell someone that I come from a different background, so I have a different life experience, a different viewpoint on something, and they're still going to believe that I'm a good person to keep in their life. It is so simple. It used to be that way across the Democratic Party, Republican Party, everything in between. It obviously isn't anymore for a multitude of different reasons. I wish people on the left were more open-minded, knowing that there are people like Donald Trump and Melania who are able to stay together no matter what, and knowing that in our country we have major disagreements on issues that are super important, like abortion, where life is at stake, where it matters so much to people in different ways. And the only way truly to work around an issue like abortion, move forward into the future and feel better about that issue, as Donald Trump always says, is to know that people who disagree with you also come from a good place, even if they landed a different decision than you do. So I think it's great. I wish there was more disagreement because the more open we are, about our disagreements, the closer we are to finding solutions for every problem that we face, because deep down we all face the exact same ones as Americans. And I wish people could remember that going into November 5th.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think it's such an important issue just to be honest about. I mean, you're going to make people upset with your abortion position,
Right.
no matter what you say. But I think the more we talk about it and we understand there's a gray area there, I think that's just helpful for all Americans. Most Americans believe in exceptions. Most Americans also think it's abhorrent to have abortion anytime, anywhere, for any reason, at any month. So we need to have more conversations. I think it's just helpful for the dialogue. Maybe that's not advantageous to the extremes on both sides, but it's important. Last question I have for you. I believe today Fox News announced that they have offered up another debate opportunity for Donald Trump and Kamala Harris to meet again at the end of this month. Do you think that Donald Trump should agree to that? And if not, why not?
It's interesting because when these debates were first brought up, I was very confident in my thought that Donald Trump should do as many of these as possible. Since then, the country, the world, everything has kind of turned upside down. That's when Joe Biden was obviously still in the race. That's when we thought we would know who the two candidates were. We were just about 6 months out from Election Day. As we know now, everything has changed. We've also experienced not only the Joe Biden-Donald Trump debate, but the Donald Trump-Kamala Harris debate, which I was not a big fan of, to be perfectly honest with you. I did not appreciate the reaction of the moderators. I did not appreciate the reaction of the people afterwards. I thought it was very strange that we cannot just have a fair debate with two candidates answering questions, no one trying to fact check one but not the other in the most blatant way possible. And I think the problem is there's like the circus created around these debates. It's no longer the debates that we used to have. And I think until we can figure out how to have those debates in a decent, honest way, there might not be a point to them, because Donald Trump tries as hard as he can, as often as he wants to, which at this point is multiple times a day, to talk to the American people. That's interviews, it's rallies, it's press conferences, everything else in between, because he wants to speak to them, but he wants to do so in an honest way. So I think the decision is up to him. It always will be. I've worked for him for almost 8 years, and he does make these decisions basically on his own. He always seems to know best as well. He has a great gut instinct, but I think it's important to note that it's a circus. It's not what the American people deserve. No one wants to wake up and decide if the moderators were fair or not, if the questions were given beforehand or not. We just want two candidates answering questions honestly, giving those answers to the people. We're not getting that anymore. Our media is not what it used to be. Everything changed. I think you can agree with me on that. When Donald Trump ran for office in 2015, I wish we could go back to normal election coverage, normal debates, just a normal environment that the American people deserve, which is full of nothing but facts and honesty, but it's just not what we have. So I think for Donald Trump, it's about wanting to give the answers to the people in the only way that he knows how to do that. And that's in the honest, probably rallies, I think, more than anything, that he loves to do, the press conferences that he loves to do. He's doing a lot of podcasts now. He's trying to connect with people and make sure there's no moderators or anyone biased in between. So the decision is up to him. I do think it's a little late now. Early voting is starting around the country, but you never know with Donald Trump. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I share the same concerns. I will say, though, and it's not just because they're my employer, but I think Fox News would do a fantastic job. I don't think you'd have to worry about the questions beforehand or the moderators jumping in and fact checking one side. I think if it's any indication how Shannon Bream conducted herself with Tim Walz, I would love to see our real journalists take a crack at this, because I think they could really make Kamala answer some tough questions, both candidates, of course, but actually put Kamala on the spot. So I'm hoping for it. I know it's a little late. This has been a very bizarre election altogether. I'm still pulling for it, though, because I think that anytime that they can pin Kamala down and, really nail her to the wall on her own positions is a victory for free speech. It's a victory for the voter, and I think inevitably a victory for the Trump campaign. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your advocacy, and God bless you and everybody in Florida and your family members in Florida. We're thinking about all of you, and we're hoping that this is not as bad as they're projecting it to be, but we're thinking about you all the same. And thanks for being with me today.
Yeah, thank you. Hope to talk to you soon.
You as well. All right, folks. Dougie Emhoff is redefining masculinity, all right, by being an actual misogynistic a-hole. It's time for final thoughts. Democrats are all A-plus operators in the areas of gaslighting, projection, and hypocrisy. We know this. Here's another example, the Dougie Emhoff story. So as second dude, Dougie dedicated himself to eradicating toxic masculinity, but he probably should have started that quest by looking in the mirror. First, it was the affair and the subsequent impregnation of the nanny. Then it was a story of him allegedly slapping an ex-girlfriend so hard she spun around. And now there's this. According to Daily Mail reporting in a lawsuit filed against his previous law firm, Doug might have had a misogyny problem, allegedly, of course. So employees of the prestigious LA law firm Venable, the law firm Dougie ran from 2006 to 2017, claimed he would single out young, pretty girls at the firm and invite them to cruise around with him in a limo. These ex-staffers also described Dougie as an a-hole and a misogynist. An anonymous former staffer reportedly told the Daily Mail that Doug once bragged about shouting at a female partner at the firm to get the F out of my office, later telling several male colleagues he had put her in her place. Former female staffers described him as, quote, very flirty. The Daily Mail also noted those females who didn't respond positively then landed on a you-know-what list or were subject to retaliation. An August 2019 lawsuit brought against the firm by a former legal secretary detailed a, quote, pattern of abuse conduct by male partners at Venable, including one alleged incident in which a partner became enraged and chased her down to scream at her even after she had dropped to her hands and knees in full panic attack. The lawsuit went into arbitration and was requested to be dismissed in November of 2021, but claims Emhoff, who was not named as a defendant, by the way, also hired an assistant named Katya, who was allegedly widely considered unqualified, but allegedly brought on board because she was young, attractive, and friendly with the powerful men in the office. Katya was hired while Dougie was married to Kamala, according to the Daily Mail. The alleged motives behind her hiring were apparently so well known at the office that the name Katya became secret shorthand at the firm for good-looking but underqualified secretaries, the suit alleges. Perhaps that attraction is a pattern for Dougie, we don't know. All of this to say, Doug sure doesn't seem like the upstanding gentleman he projects himself to be, and if we're going to be all liberal feminists, we should probably believe all women, including his former staffers and girlfriend, that this man is probably a jerk. Why should we give Doug the benefit of the doubt? Is Trump ever afforded that? What about Melania? Does the left or the mainstream media ever pass up an opportunity to degrade her? No, never. Doug, like other Democrats in high places, appears to be everything he claims to fight against. Difference is, he will likely never be asked to atone or account for it. It's a tale as old as time. But those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also catch full episodes of this show at Fox Nation at your leisure. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.